So in this one, a different type of video to what I normally talk about. This is primarily for the women who watch my content. Although of course, as men, we can learn something from this as well. But I'm sure, many of the men who are watching this, you've dealt with narcissistic women. So this may be something that you can relate to as well. But yeah, what we're going to be talking about are 7 signs that you're dating a man who wants a mother, not a partner. This is going to be a validating video for so many of you who have been through this. And yeah, essentially it's like you're not really in a relationship. It's more like you're taking care of a child who's not doing their fair share of work, and instead you're doing everything. And it's very tiring and exhausting because you thought you were in a relationship with someone where it's going to be mutually beneficial, where it's going to be good for you just as it's good for them. But of course, that's not what it's like when you're dealing with a man who wants a mother, not a partner. And so we're going to get into the 7 signs that you are dating this type of man. And I'm sure it's going to be so validating for many of you. So let's get into it with number 1. He expects you to take care of everything for him. And he may not even be working, he may not have a job, and he just puts everything onto you. You've got to do all of the work, while he doesn't have to chip in financially. And maybe he's just sitting on the couch most of the day, watching television, playing video games. And you're the one who has to take on all of the responsibility. And not only that, but you're also doing all of the household chores, while he just sits back and does nothing other than complaining and maybe expecting you to do more. He's very lazy and unmotivated. So that's the first sign that you're dating a man who wants a mother, not a partner. He essentially just wants you to take care of him, to do everything for him, and even provide him with emotional support as well. To take care of his feelings, to mother him. So like your child and you're his parent. He needs you to do them because he can't regulate his own emotions. He struggles to do so. So he puts it all onto you, and he expects you to take care of him emotionally. That's the first sign that you're dating a man who wants a mother, not a partner. The second sign is that he avoids taking responsibility and blames others when things go wrong. So maybe he did something wrong. Maybe he made a fault or mistake. Maybe he did something deliberately. Whatever it is, he doesn't take responsibility for it. And instead he passes it off onto someone else. Holds someone else accountable. He says, they did it. He must have done that. She didn't take care of it. Even though deep down he may know fully well that it was his responsibility, that he made that mistake, he did something wrong. But he doesn't look within, he doesn't self-reflect. Instead, he chooses to remain in denial, instead of stepping up and being a man. instead of taking care of things, instead of at least just doing things equally in the relationship. Because relationships should be reciprocal. They should be mutually beneficial instead of just one person doing all of the work, taking responsibility for everything. Of course, it could be very tiring and exhausting. This is what it's like when you're dating a man who wants a mother, not a partner. The third sign is that he seeks constant validation and reassurance, like a child seeking approval. So he always needs your ideas, your input, your feedback, your response to him, to reassure him, to validate him and make him feel secure. He lacks that inner self-confidence and reassurance. He's not so sure about things. He hasn't really worked on himself, on his self-belief. And instead, he's put you in the role, in the position of being there for him and telling him what is right for him to do. And to just make him feel confident, to make him feel safe and secure, rather than him doing that for himself. So this is another sign, you know, when you're dealing with a man who seeks constant reassurance from you. And yeah, that leads me into the fourth point. He struggles to make independent decisions without your guidance. So like I said in the last point, he constantly requires your input, your feedback for everything. Constantly seeking validation and reassurance. Never making up his own mind on his own. And because of that, he then relies on you to make the decisions. Because maybe he fears that he might do something wrong. He's insecure. So he wants you to be in control of everything, so that you will always be accountable, so that he doesn't have to deal with anything. He doesn't have to worry about it. He makes you worry about it instead. He projects all of the stress, all of the worries, all of the responsibilities onto you, so that he doesn't have to carry the burden. And of course, this could be very draining, constantly having to guide someone. Constantly having to lead them the right way, in the right direction. You're constantly having to pull them along. Like you're constantly holding their hands. They can't just do it on their own. And of course, this can be very draining. It can be very exhausting to go through that. Because of course, you know, you expect him to be a man. You expect him to be strong enough and secure enough to make decisions on his own. And not only that, but especially with men, we should be strong and independent. We should be self-assured, confident. We should be making most of the decisions in a relationship. We should be knowing what to do. At least that is what I believe. Of course, you know, it's not going to be the case in every relationship. But generally, I believe that's how it should be. But instead, it's all piled onto you and you're left to make all of the decisions in that relationship. Because he wants a mother, not a partner. He wants someone to guide him, to make all of the decisions, to take responsibility for everything. If this is resonating with you and validating your experience so far, please give it a thumbs up so it can get out there to other women who may need to see it as well. The fifth sign. He acts helpless or clueless to manipulate you into doing things for him. So it may not be that he's not capable, that he doesn't have the ability. He may be fully able to accomplish something, but he acts helpless or clueless because maybe he just can't be bothered, or maybe he is a bit insecure. But either way, he's doing that to manipulate you into doing everything for him, into taking on all of the responsibilities that he should be taking care of. So he acts all innocent and unaware. He acts helpless, clueless, as though he doesn't know what to do. So that it then leaves you feeling like you have to take charge. You have to be in control of everything. And I'm sure many of you have fallen for this. When you see him acting this way, acting like he doesn't know what to do, it makes you want to step in and take charge. It makes you feel like that's what you're supposed to do. Because naturally, that's how we feel when we see someone who appears to be helpless, who appears to be clueless. It makes us want to take charge. It makes us want to be in control of that situation. But instead, you need to take a step back and recognize that you are being manipulated. And if you do take a step back, it's more likely that at some point he will eventually step up and do something about it. Six, he gets jealous of your time and attention when you're not focused on him. Again, he needs a consistent parental figure to be there for him, to worry about him, to show concern, to care about his emotions, because he's struggling to self-regulate. He's struggling to take care of himself. So he needs you there to guide him and care for him. And because of that, he gets jealous of your independence. He gets jealous when your time and attention isn't focused on him. Essentially, it's like dealing with a baby who's dependent on you for their survival, who has an inability to take care of itself. That's what it's like when you're dealing with a man like this. He will dominate all of your time and attention. He will ensure that your focus is always on him. That you're always having to see him, listen to him, care about him. And it can be very draining because you have no time for yourself. You have no time for your own thoughts. Because you're constantly having to take care of this man-child. This is what it's like when you're dealing with a man who wants a mother, not a partner. The seventh sign, he resents your independence and tries to make you feel guilty for it. A man who wants a mother, not a partner, will eventually resent your independence. Because again, the whole point of why they targeted you, why they wanted to be in a relationship with you, is because they wanted you to take care of them. They wanted you to feel dependent on them in some sort of way. Even if it's just as you maybe desiring to be this motherly figure in their life. because maybe in some sort of way it fulfills a need for you. Maybe it makes you feel needed. Maybe you feel like you're doing the right thing by taking care of him. Maybe you were made to be the parent in your childhood for your parents. So you were conditioned to be this way. Well, as for this man that you're dealing with, maybe they were conditioned to be in a helpless state, a childlike state, where they were then made to have to manipulate their parents into worrying and showing concern for them. Because some parents will do this to their child. They will deliberately disable them. And they will be codependent towards their child, also in a narcissistic way, because they want to maintain that control over their child. They don't want them to get away, because the child serves their needs in so many ways. The child makes the parent feel needed, in control, in charge, powerful, significant, relevant, all of these things. So this is why the parent may sometimes deliberately disable their child. And so it's not all about just putting the blame on the man and making it out like there's something wrong with him. No, we should show compassion for these men. We may not know what happened to them in their childhood. So we should try and understand where they're coming from. And to a certain extent, try to be there for them emotionally. But also try to encourage them to take care of themselves, to step up and be men. And of course, this should never be an overnight thing. It's not something where you just walk over to the couch and just turn off the television, turn off the video games, and they just hand them the vacuum cleaner. We don't want to take an aggressive stance, because remember, something may have happened to them in their childhoods. They may have been conditioned to operate in this state. So instead, take things gradually. Take small steps. Get them to take on small responsibilities over time. Because then gradually, over several weeks, several months, it will begin to add up. And then that boy, that man-child, will gradually develop into a mature, responsible man. And I know that's what so many of you want. You just want to know, how could you stop him from being so lazy and unmotivated? How can you get him to get his act together? And that's really what you've got to do, Don't overwhelm him immediately. You've got to take it slowly. And make him feel good about taking responsibility. Make it so that these small goals boost his self-esteem. Make him feel better about himself. Make him feel powerful, independent, in control of his life. So that's really what you want to do. You want to give an incentive. And yeah, in time he will become more masculine. He will begin to take charge of his responsibilities. But yeah, definitely have compassion for these men. We've got to see the other side. We've got to understand what they're going through. Because they can be going through a lot of things as well. They may be feeling insecure. They may be lacking confidence. They may not feel so sure about themselves. They may not feel like they can do it. Or they may feel like they're disabled. They may be lacking energy, motivation. There could be a number of different reasons for it. So we need to be compassionate, just as we would be towards women. We have to be the same way towards these men. By understanding that, yes, you know, they do have a past. They may have been conditioned to act in a certain way in order to get their needs met, that they feel that they can't meet for themselves. And so we have to show some compassion for them and just gradually set small goals that they can achieve so that they can feel more independent and feel more secure, better about themselves. So yeah, I hope this video is helpful for you. And if it is, please give it a thumbs up. And let me know if you have any questions. I know this is a different type of video to what I normally talk about. And, you know, let's see if is there a demand for this. If there is, that I will do more types of this content. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions down below. As you can see, I'm just out here at this park by these skyscrapers, the Petronas Towers. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions. What I will say is that, you know, I understand a lot about this because I resonate with it myself. I've always been a man who people have wanted to disable and put into a childlike state. You know, anytime that I'm trying to be a man, I'm trying to be masculine, in charge, in control. Like people in my family and in the relationships that I'm in, they've always wanted to turn me into a child and then blame me for that. And act like I need to grow up, I need to be a man. When all the while they won't let me. They want to keep me as a child so that they can feel powerful and needed, and so they have someone to blame. So they always want to keep me in a helpless state where I'm very confused and I don't know what to do. And I have no control over myself or my life. And, you know, that can be important too sometimes, is to check yourself. Are you doing this to the man that you're with? Does that fulfill a need for you? And of course, that will be the case for many of you. Typically, that's going to be for more women who are narcissistic, dominant, controlling. But yeah, that's what I've experienced throughout my life. Because I have dealt with narcissists. A lot of the women who watch my content, they're not narcissistic. They're more empathic, they're more giving. They're giving in to these men who should be taking responsibility. And, you know, it all starts with that awareness, the acceptance of it, recognizing what's happened, validated, so that you can then gradually start to make the changes. Baby Cake says he drinks and blames his ex for not seeing his son. The only solution is to cut ties. Yeah, if he's drinking excessively and it's affecting his daily life, it's affecting the relationship, it's affecting him stepping up and taking responsibility, doing the things that he needs to do, then that is a problem. If you're not seeing any consistent changes, I mean, sometimes, you know, it can be difficult for a man to stop drinking. It may be something that gives him a form of escape. It gives him a false sense of confidence, and he may be dependent on that. So that's important to recognize. But yeah, he needs to get help if that's the case. Something about it. He needs to recognize if it's something addictive that's holding him back. And if he's not willing to do that, then sometimes the best thing you can do is cut ties. But also doing it in a responsible way. Understanding that he may be battling depression. And of course, by you cutting ties in a cold way, if it's cruel, it may tip him over the edge. Because, in some cases, his life may revolve around you, and he may not know what to do without you. So always do it in a compassionate way. And, make it clear what the problem is about him drinking and constantly blaming his ex. Constantly bringing his ex into the relationship. Make it clear what the issue is and why you're leaving. And, because he's not making any positive changes. But yeah, you do have the right to leave. If he's engaged in these addictions, these unhealthy coping mechanisms, he's drinking excessively, and that goes against your values, your morals. And especially if he wasn't doing that at the beginning of the relationship, and you're seeing it now and you're uncomfortable with it, you have every right to leave. If he's not making any positive changes, any improvements. So remind yourself of that. Mimi Reese says, you're so right. It's like having another very young and needy child. That's it, and it could be something from childhood conditioning. Maybe their parent wanted them to stay needy and clingy, dependent. It's a possibility. Sometimes, these men can be narcissistic and they want to be a child. They want to have everything given to them without any responsibility, without any work. That could be the case as well. And they may have manipulated their parents in their childhood. That's also a possibility. I don't know so much about your individual situations. I'm just throwing things out there. So you let me know what resonates with you, what you think may be the case in your situation. But yeah, especially if we're not talking about narcissistic men, then we should definitely have some compassion for them. Because, things may have been done to them in their childhoods. Things that disabled them, things that held them back. And so this is not to blame or shame those men. Of course not. This is about trying to validate your experience. And, we want to see some positive changes. We want to give them the encouragement to step up and be men and take charge of their lives. So that's what this is more about. I'm never about blaming or shaming women or men. That's never helpful. I mean, with narcissists, that's a different thing. They know exactly what they're doing. They do it deliberately and they don't care about you. And they have no intentions of changing, so if you want to blame or shame a narcissist, that's fine with me. That's a different story. MJ says, I'm married to a narc. It feels like drowning. That's it, they're constantly in a pit of misery. They're in hell and they're just constantly trying to take you down with them. They want to pull you down to hell with them because that's where they're at. While you're much higher. You're more focused on growth, self-improvement, making things better. They just want to go right down to the bottom. And they want to take you there with them because seeing you climbing higher, it's making them feel insecure. It's reminding them of where they're at. It's like a crabs in the bucket mentality. They pull you down. They make you feel less than yourself. They make you feel not good about yourself. Because that's where they're at. They're in depression. Deidre Deloach says he tells all your personal business behind your back. Yeah, that's really bad. I mean, someone you're in a relationship with, or even if it's someone who's family, I mean, they should never be telling your personal business to anyone. That is a breach of loyalty, of a family or relationship contract. That is an act of betrayal. And betrayal is one of the worst things that a person can do to another person. It's evil. But that's what certain people will do. Narcissistic men, narcissistic women too, of course. They will betray you. They will throw you under the bus. They will share your secrets, your personal information that you confided in them. And you confided it in them because they made you believe that they were there for you and that they would help you. A very cruel, sadistic thing to do. That is betrayal. And betrayal is wrong. Steady Pace says they need our emotional energy. Withhold it from them. Yeah, that's it, I mean, with these narcissistic men especially. But what I would say, if you're dealing with a man who's not really a narcissist, or he's only mildly narcissistic, maybe he's more in a childlike state, he may have been conditioned to be that way in childhood. What I would say with that type of man, you may not need to withhold your emotional energy completely. Do it gradually and then provide an incentive to him to take more responsibility, to manage himself more. That's going to be more beneficial rather than just going cold turkey. Because again, these types of men, they may be going through something. And by you cutting off that energy completely, it may send them over the edge. They may harm themselves. So recognize what type of man you're dealing with and whether or not they are deserving of your compassion. By recognizing just how harmful it is to you and how compassionate they are towards you. Because that's what's going to tell you what type of man you're dealing with. Baby Cake says, I go to the gym and he gets jealous. I mean, I don't know the exact dynamics of your relationship with this man. But what I will say is that, the world is changing all the time, and it's gotten to a point where so many women, they can't even go to the gym without some man trying to flirt on them in some sort of way, or without a man checking them out. So that may be what he's insecure about. And it may be making him jealous. It may be making him think that, oh, she's going to the gym. And I don't know, maybe you're wearing shorts, maybe you're wearing yoga pants. And he may be worried that some other man has his eyes on you. Or maybe even thinking of hitting on you. And it may be making him feel insecure, like someone is taking his girl away from him. And honestly, no man wants that to happen. So, try and see things from his point of view. Try and understand his jealousy, his insecurity. Because honestly, that is kind of a natural insecurity. And it may not mean that you can't just go to the gym at all. Maybe you could try something like Say that you will text or call him before you do your workout or during your workout. And maybe you can just scan the room with your phone and video call. You might only have to do that a few times, and maybe he'll start feeling more secure about it. Or maybe go to the gyms at certain times where it's not so busy. Or go to the gym with a friend that you trust and that he trusts. There's different things that you can do to try and make him feel more secure. Because, yeah, sometimes men can be insecure. And sometimes it is warranted, especially in the culture that we live in today. I mean, I know myself, I've dated women. They couldn't go anywhere without men checking them out, hitting on them. And I'll admit, it did make me jealous and insecure. It did keep me up late at night worrying where they were, especially when they were going to clubs all night. So, we got to have some compassion, especially if you're not dealing with a man who's highly narcissistic. Try and understand where his jealousy and insecurity is coming from. And try and make him feel more secure. Because all men, they're all going to have a little bit of insecurity. There's always going to be a bit of jealousy. It's human to feel that way. So we got to be compassionate to some extent for men and women. Sam says, when I go to the gym, my girlfriend gets jealous. Exactly, it's on both sides. Could be boyfriend or girlfriend. And, like I said, we got to have some compassion because gyms these days, they're like meat markets. You've got men there wearing their vests, showing off their biceps. And, some women, they like to wear sports bras, yoga pants. And I don't think anyone is so completely naive that they don't think that people are checking each other out there. Of course they are. I mean, just look on TikTok. You can see all of these videos. It's what people do. And so we need to be more conscious of it, more understanding. If you want to have a healthy relationship. And if your relationship is important to you, especially if you're not dealing with a narcissist, then you've got to have strong boundaries. If someone is checking you out at the gym, you don't feed into it. You look the other way. If they hit on you, you say no. You say, I'm with someone already. And yeah, if anyone ever gets tempted, if they ever feel enticed into maybe feeling seduced by someone, then be conscious of that too. Recognize that you may have that desire there. And do the inner work that you need to do to resolve that. But then also recognize that a bit of temptation, it's always going to be there. And to some extent, that is healthy. That's never going to go away. And that's okay, it's just like with feelings of jealousy or envy, it's normal and it's healthy. As long as you don't let it lead to behaviors Steady Pace Steady Pace says, narcs don't appreciate your kindness at all. Oh, they do not appreciate it. They see it as a weakness. They see it as something that they can exploit, take advantage of, and to give them power and control over you. And they resent that in you because they see it as though, yeah, you're being kind, but it's only because you don't know what they're really like. You don't know how bad they go. Or you're being kind because you're just a better person than them. You don't have the issues that they have. So yeah, they resent your kindness and they see it as a weakness. Duchess Tiffany says, stunning park you're at, Christopher. Oh, I know, I love it, you know. I love the trees and the sound of the birds. And also this architecture, look at that. Incredible. It's like something from the future. Some of you may know, I first came to Malaysia in 2020. And that was when I first saw the Petronas Towers. And honestly, to this day, I still remember that experience. When I arrived at this this hotel. And I went in the elevator going up to the room. I remember to this day there was these three very beautiful young girls in the lift going up to the hotel room. Put all of the stuff in the room, and then I went up to the infinity pool. And that was the first time in my entire life that I had ever seen an infinity pool. And I remember I looked it up on Google. I had never seen anything like that before. And, obviously I've seen plenty of them now. But then also behind the pool, I saw the Petronas Towers. Here they are. And yeah, it was an incredible view. It's really changed my life making these videos, giving you this content. I've had so many experiences I never thought I would have. Which, it's kind of funny thinking about it, thinking that I came from such an affluent family. Growing up in a multi-million pound house with millions of pounds worth of supercars. And yeah, even little things like, when I started making money from YouTube and going to the supermarket, and I could buy pizza. I could order a Domino's whenever I wanted to. And even that was kind of out of reach. I mean, even just going to the supermarket and I could buy a £2 bar chocolate. Some of you may remember some of my earlier live videos. I'm like sitting there with a box of chocolates, and it's like such a big deal to me. And even to this day, it still is. Because, it's like at some level, maybe that wound is still there and it's not healed completely. But yeah, even to this day, it's like little breadcrumbs, like, I can go to the store and just buy chocolate, and it's like such a big deal to me. But yeah, that's why, if you look at my Instagram, you will see all sorts of posts, and it's like, it's like things that a child will be excited about. Because I was controlled, these were things that I couldn't have. And it was such a contrast, living in a multi-million pound house and, going out on the road in like an Aston Martin DB9 and DBS, Mercedes AMG. This was normal to me. And, being around all of these extremely wealthy people, entrepreneurs, and then at the same time, I couldn't have what I wanted. So, yeah, you know, once I got my independence, I felt free, and it was almost like a premature midlife crisis, because I was at the age of 29. But yeah, it was really because I was just kind of held back in childhood. I didn't get to have what I wanted. Baby Cake says, oh yeah, see, my dad always spoiled me, so I feel you. Then get mad at relying on them. Yeah, that's what they did with me, you know. Sometimes I was spoiled in some ways. Like sometimes, you know, my father would take me to a designer clothes store and I could just buy Emporio Armani and, you know, just luxury brands. And sometimes we'd go there, he'd spend like over £1,000 at one go. And you would feel like he's the man, like he's a hero then. And you know, I didn't think about it at the time, but it's like, yeah, he's going there spending £1,000. And compared to his earnings, compared to the cost of the house and his cars, it's nothing. Even then, it's still nothing. Especially considering that this is like once every year or two. I mean, if you compare that to what just average parents spend on their child, it's probably less in comparison, because it wasn't very often that we would do that. But yeah, he also got mad at me for depending on him as well. That's what they do. They make you dependent on them, and then they make it out like there's a problem with you. It's crazy making. It's like, all right, so if you want me to be responsible and you don't want me to depend on you, then don't sabotage my independence. But of course, this is what they do. They bring it all on themselves. They are their own worst enemies. They create all these problems for themselves. AKA John Doe says, teach us about women, dude, I'm 15. You know, there is a lot that I could teach to teenagers about the opposite sex and about dating. But, you know, judging from my analytics, there really isn't much of a demand for it. I think my viewers from the age of 13 to 18, it's about 0.1% of all of my viewers. But what I would say for you, aka John Doe, as a 15-year-old boy, is not to worry about girls. I mean, for a start, you've got to look at yourself and recognize sorry about that, it just got cut off. But yeah, as I was saying, teenage boys, they don't have any value to bring. You know, you're still a boy. You don't have that same experience, wisdom, or even resources as a grown man. And, you know, also with that lack of experience, that world experience, it's really not going to serve you by worrying so much about dating and the opposite sex as a teenager. So many young boys are worrying about this. You know, they're worrying about how, you know, they haven't lost their virginity yet. This shouldn't even be a concern to you. I didn't lose my virginity until I was 22. At this time, you should be focusing on yourself when you're young. Focus on your own growth. Focus on developing into the man that you need to be when you are in your mid-20s. Because that's when you want to focus on dating. And that's when you're going to be ready. So don't worry so much about it now. It's not important. So that's my advice to you. Deidre Deloach says it's spiritual. It's learned from their parents. It's generational curses. I mean, that's another thing altogether. And who even knows? I mean, it is kind of something that I have been exploring within myself. But you can't even figure out where it's coming from. Because you would have to know your family tree, and even then it could go back thousands of years for all we know. And, you know, by that point, it may not even be within your own country. It could be from somewhere on the other side of the world. So it can be very difficult. Generational curses, it can be a challenging thing to deal with. And, you know, I think it's not so much about trying to figure out where it originates from. Instead, just recognize that, yes, it does exist within yourself. And that's the important thing, being aware that it is there. But you know, it's interesting you mentioned that, because this was such a concern to me. You know, I will say, when I had my daughter nearly 5 years ago, I was such a perfectionist. I mean, I was working up to 15 hours a day, making sure everything is perfect. And it's like I wanted her to be in a padded room, or the childhood that my parents had, from what I know. And so, you know, I try to be perfect in every possible way. I really did. And, you know, then I realized, what I realize now, after everything that happened, after everything was like the opposite as perfect as it possibly could be, that it doesn't matter. You know, you could be the most perfect man or woman in the world for yourself and for your children. What difference does it make? You can't change the world. You can't change the environment. And in fact, by you doing that, by you trying to make your child have the perfect childhood and grow up in the perfect home, that's only going to make them even more weak, even more susceptible when they finally go out into the world. Honestly, you're better off if you do expose them to a bit of harm, to extra discipline. And I hate to say that, because, you know, I'm typically the opposite, especially when it comes to children, but I see it now. But it's better if they are a bit more rugged, a bit more rough, because then they're going to be ready when they go out into the world. The world is not a nice place. So then I think about it, what's really the point in healing these generational curses? It's not going to help us anyway, because the rest of the world isn't joining us. So, you know, in some ways, it's like your child may be better off being narcissistic, being a psychopath. Because if you're raising a kind, sweet, empathic child, what's going to happen to them in this world? And, maybe that's why it happened the way that it did with me. And maybe that's why I'm not the one who's taking care of my child. Because maybe that's exactly what would have happened. Is that she would have grown up to be a very sweet, soft, innocent thing. And then people would have come around and taken advantage of it. So maybe that's how it is sometimes. Because as you know, I'm codependent, I'm an empathic person. So yeah, I wouldn't worry so much about the generational curses. You've got to know when and when not to be compassionate when you're dealing with someone. Because honestly, a lot of people out here, they will take advantage of that. They are completely ruthless. They're cutthroat. They're not deserving of your kindness. Heike Homestead says the most attractive thing in a person is seeing themselves improve. Yeah, that's why I say to have some compassion to some men, because honestly, that could be the most rewarding thing. Is seeing that man going from being a caterpillar, going into a cocoon, and then sprouting wings and becoming a butterfly. Sometimes, if you are relatively confident and secure, the most attractive, beautiful thing in life is seeing someone find their freedom. That should be the most attractive thing to us. That should be what we want for everyone. But unfortunately, some people, they are jealous, they are insecure. And so they don't want to see that for you. And, of course, there should be limits, there should be boundaries to our freedom. It doesn't mean that you're in a relationship, you're in a marriage, and you can go off and be free and just sleep with anyone you like. It should never be going from one extreme to the other. That is a recipe for disaster. There should always be a balance to things. But this is what we often see in the world, I hate to get political. But come on, this is what it's like. I don't think anyone can say that they don't see this consistent pattern. So it's one extreme to the other. Constantly. When are we ever going to be finding a balance? When are we going to be fair? But then, of course, for us to do that, people have to look over a lot of things in the past. They have to overlook it. And I guess, that's a difficult thing for people to do. But, I'm not going to get too hysterical about it. I don't like to get too political. John Tracy says, I've seen a 76-year-old guy go off on tantrums on steroids. Wow. Yeah, that is, that would make me very sad to see that. Because thinking about it, at that point in your life, 76 years old, by the time you're middle-aged, you should have a lot of things figured out by then. You should know how to regulate your emotions, how to be calm, stoic. You should have experience, wisdom. You should have learned some things by that point instead of being stuck in the same cycle mentally, psychologically. So for me, it just makes me feel sad. It's like, what, you've lived your entire life and you got yourself nowhere. You're still stuck in the same state, mentally, emotionally, as you were when you were a child. Honestly, I couldn't imagine anything worse for myself than to get to that age, 76, and I haven't gotten anywhere. I haven't upgraded my character mentally, emotionally, psychologically. Financially, that's not always such a big deal. I mean, you're not going to take any money with you, but at least have the experience and gain the wisdom. That's what counts. And if anything, you should be more focused on that rather than so much things to do with money and image and work. And that's what matters. That's the whole point, is to learn about ourselves, to develop our characters. But yeah, people like that, I mean, it's too late for them. It's too late for them. They're not going to get anywhere at that point. If they're that late in life. But you know, at least what I can say, you know, seeing things from their experience, we could argue that maybe back in their time, they didn't have the awareness, they didn't have all of the information. So that's one thing that I can say for them. But in this day and age, I mean, people should be waking up. People should be realizing things about themselves. Lavolpe says, would a Tesla Cybertruck be solid enough to protect Elon Musk against eggs thrown by an adult male? I don't know exactly what you're referring to there. Is that you who wants to throw the eggs at Elon Musk? Or are you trying to point out the ridiculousness of another man wanting to do that? I mean, what are you going to understand? You know, when we're talking about people, you know, such high-profile personalities, people who have a lot of power, who have to make extremely difficult decisions. People like Donald Trump, Elon Musk, I mean, you try and put yourself in their shoes. You try and make the decisions that they have to make. It's a very difficult position to be in. I mean, you know, they have to think about what's going to benefit mankind in the future. What's going to get us to where we need to be. And unfortunately, you know, that does involve a lot of difficulties for many of us in the here and now. It might cause a lot of job loss. It can affect us in so many ways. And so we got to understand that too, you know. We've got to see things from their perspective as well. From what they're going through. Yes, they may appear narcissistic at times, but they will, you know, in positions of power. It's difficult for a leader to be highly empathic because that can get them into a lot of trouble and they may never make those important decisions. But yeah, a bit off topic, but I thought I'd answer that as well. Duchess Tiffany says, I prefer to utilize all-female gym. Yeah, that's a good idea. If you're in a relationship, that's going to make your man feel much more secure, comfortable. You know, that's what you should want. You know, if you want to maintain a healthy relationship and he should do the same thing for you. It should be the same on both sides, you know, not about one side trying to gain power over the other. But yeah, you know, I've enjoyed doing this different type of topic with you today. And I'm interested to see, is there a demand for this content or not? If there is, then maybe I will do more videos like this. But if not, then I probably won't, because, you know, what's the point making this type of content if nobody's going to watch it? So yeah, let's see how it goes. And if you do enjoy this type of content, then be sure to give it a like, you know, support it, share it, because then that way it's going to be more likely that I make more videos like this as well. But yeah, as you can see, it is beginning to rain. So I'm going to go get something to eat, and then I'm going to go back to my condo. I'm going to finish up the editing on my next video, which will be up around midday EST. And yeah, I'm spending much more time on editing the videos these days. And yeah, this new video is about how long will it take for the narcissist to get bored of the new supply. So it's not really something that I've talked about so much before. And everything's really on point today, you know, the music, the footage, it's all going to blend really well. And so I'm really looking forward to share that with you. And, you know, I'm hoping it's going to be pretty popular. I'm really getting into it. I'm really enjoying my work. I'm very passionate about it. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to sharing that with you. So, you know, subscribe, click on notifications, and then as soon as it's uploaded, you will see when that video is about to premiere. It's about how soon will the narcissist get bored of the new supply. And yeah, many videos coming soon. I've got so many videos that I've made notes about already, even years ago, even right from the beginning, and I still haven't got around to making them yet. But yeah, I've got to go through my archive, and I'm going to pull all of those out and start making those videos as well. So there's so much more great content coming very soon. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, give it a thumbs up if you found it helpful. Subscribe. Drop a comment down below in the comment section. Very important. It helps the YouTube algorithm. Let's get the conversation started. I'm seeing more and more people comment now. We're getting more and more subscribers, more and more viewers. I'm reading your comments every day. Your comments are very important to me. I'm always interested in what you have to say. And if you would like guidance to support your healing journey, book a one-on-one with me. Just go to my website, narcsurvivor.co.uk. Your donations are greatly appreciated, no matter how small. Donate by going to my PayPal, paypal.me/narcsurvivor. And also, I do have my Instagram. Follow me on there. It is Narc Survivor YouTube. So that's it for today. Live from the Patronus Towers. Thank you all for joining me on another live video. And I will talk to you in another one very soon.